Before we begin, this broadcast is a fictional audio drama created for entertainment purposes. Good evening. You're listening to Interplanetary Public Relay Earth-Luna Band broadcasting from the Atlantic Orbital Downlink Network. I'm Jon Vale, and what began this morning as a procedural dispute over Martian trade representation has now become the most serious political crisis in human history. For most of the day, officials on Earth described the situation as a delay, a negotiation issue, a settlement governance dispute, a disagreement over mineral quotas, water rights reporting, corporate tax obligations, and the language of the latest Earth-Mars Charter renewal. Nothing unusual, in other words. Mars has argued with Earth before. Mars argues with Earth constantly. It argues over freight rates, oxygen licensing, labor authority, mining rights, orbital docking fees, terraforming permits, university funding, medical autonomy, fuel taxes, and how many Earth-appointed inspectors should be allowed inside Martian life support stations. That is the background noise of the interplanetary age. Earth writes the charters. Mars files objections. Earth revises the language. Mars rejects the revisions. Everyone threatens arbitration. Nobody sleeps. The ships keep moving. That is how it usually works. But approximately 6 hours ago, the Martian Provisional Assembly suspended all scheduled debate on the charter renewal and ordered every major public relay on Mars into synchronized emergency broadcast mode. Ares City, Hellas Basin, Val Station, Utopia Planitia, Phobos Dockyard, Deimos Traffic Net, Olympus Relay Crown. All of them carried the same feed. At first, Earth authorities believed it was a negotiating tactic, a dramatic one, but still a tactic. Then the Martian speaker took the podium. She did not ask for new terms. She did not request arbitration. She did not threaten a trade delay. She read a declaration. The declaration was 13 minutes and 42 seconds long. Its central line was this: as of this transmission, Mars no longer recognizes the jurisdiction of Earth-based authorities, Earth-chartered corporations, or Earth-appointed governors over Martian territory, Martian infrastructure, Martian labor, Martian law, or Martian life support systems. A few seconds later, she said the sentence that is now being repeated across every settlement under the red sky. Mars belongs to those who breathe its dust. That is where we are tonight. Mars has declared independence. Earth has called that declaration illegal. Martian authorities have taken control of orbital relays, traffic systems, life support licensing offices, and corporate oxygen infrastructure. Earth officials are calling for calm. Martian officials are calling for recognition. Several Earth fleet assets have been placed on alert. Several Martian civilian habitats have entered emergency posture. No confirmed shots have been fired. No confirmed casualties have been reported. But the distance between a declaration and a war has become much shorter than it was this morning. This is Interplanetary Public Relay. I'm Jon Vale. Stay with us. We are now 7 hours into the Martian independence crisis. That is the phrase being used by Earth officials. The Martian Provisional Assembly is using a different phrase. They are calling it the first day of sovereignty. Language matters on nights like this. One side says crisis. The other says birth. One side says unlawful seizure. The other says liberation. One side says Mars was built with Earth money. The other says Mars was built with Martian bodies. And between those sentences are 28 million people living under domes, inside lava tubes, along sealed canyon walls, beneath agricultural glass, in mining tunnels, orbital stations, refinery decks, shipyards, transit rings, and dust-buried towns whose names most people on Earth never learn unless something explodes nearby. That is part of the problem. For Earth, Mars is often a headline, a market, a strategic asset, a story about human ambition, a place for documentaries, an investment category, a voting issue, a romantic frontier myth. For the people born there, Mars is not a frontier, it is home. And tonight, home has declared itself a nation. The official Earth statement arrived 1 hour after the declaration. The United Earth Council called the Martian announcement an illegal nullification of interplanetary treaty law. The Council said Mars remains a dependent planetary territory under the Articles of Shared Development, the Charter of Settlement Continuity, and the Earth-Mars Infrastructure Debt Compact. That last document is going to matter. The Infrastructure Debt Compact is the legal framework Earth has used for more than a century to justify authority over Martian ports, oxygen grids, water extraction systems, agricultural basins, and orbital relays. The argument is simple. Earth paid for the first domes, Earth financed the first reactors, Earth built the earliest ice processing plants. Earth provided the ships, the seed banks, the medical systems, the pressure engineering, the orbital mirrors, the dust shields, the transport routes. Mars, Earth argues, exists because Earth invested in it. Therefore, Mars cannot simply walk away. Mars's response is also simple. Debt is not sovereignty, and no contract can give one planet permanent ownership over the air another planet's children breathe. That line was not in the official declaration. It came later from a Martian legal advisor speaking outside the assembly chamber. But it has already become one of the phrases of the night. No contract owns our air. Within minutes of the declaration, the Martian Provisional Assembly passed a series of emergency acts. The first revoked the authority of Earth-appointed governors. The second suspended Earth corporate enforcement privileges. The third placed all oxygen, water, pressure, heat, food production, and medical distribution systems under Martian public authority. That is the moment the political crisis became something more. Mars did not begin by seizing land. Mars began by seizing air. The first territory Mars claimed was life support. If that sounds dramatic, it is not. It is technical. On Mars, sovereignty is not a flag. It is who controls the pumps, who controls the pressure doors, who controls the filters, who controls the heaters, who controls the software that decides how much oxygen enters a school at dawn. Earth can argue about law. Mars has taken control of the systems that make a law breathable. Approximately 8 hours into the crisis, we are receiving our first public listener messages from across the Earth-Luna network. A freight controller in Nairobi writes, "I've spent 20 years routing cargo to Mars. Every manifest says destination, Mars sector, not Ares, not Hellas, not Valles, just Mars sector, like it's a warehouse shelf. I never thought about how that must feel to the people living there. Tonight I am thinking about it." A student in Sao Paulo writes, "My grandparents were born on Mars. My parents moved back to Earth before I was born. I have never been there, but half my family still lives under the domes. Earth News keeps saying Mars is rebelling. My cousins are saying they are finally being counted as people. I don't know which side I'm supposed to be on." A retired officer from the Earth Orbital Navy writes, "Independence is one thing, seizing relays is another. If Mars controls the Olympus relay crown, they control half the traffic map between the inner and outer lanes. Earth cannot allow that to stand. I hope someone on both sides understands how fast this can turn into fire." That is the fear tonight, not that Mars declared independence. That was always possible. Everyone who studied the settlement models knew this day might come. The fear is that Mars understood independence as a systems problem before Earth understood it as a political one. While Earth drafted statements, Mars took the relays. While Earth cited treaty law, Mars secured air processing software. While Earth requested emergency negotiations, Martian technicians changed command access at Phobos Dockyard. This was not improvised. That is now clear. This was planned. The question is, how long Mars has been planning it, and how much of Earth's infrastructure it still quietly controls. The Olympus relay crown is now the center of the crisis. For listeners who do not spend their nights thinking about interplanetary communications architecture, the relay crown is not a single tower or satellite. It is a ring of synchronized communication stations, orbital repeaters, laser relays, hardened traffic routers, and deep space control nodes arranged across high Martian orbit and the upper slopes of Olympus Mons. It handles nearly all high-volume data movement between Mars, Earth, Luna, the belt routes, and the outer transport lanes, civilian traffic, trade manifests, personal messages, medical data, navigation corrections, corporate transactions, military routing. If you want to speak to Mars reliably, you speak through the Crown. Tonight, the Crown answers to Mars. Earth officials say the relay Crown is jointly operated under Earth-Mars Treaty Authority and cannot legally be nationalized. Mars says the Crown is physically maintained by Martian crews, powered by Martian reactors, repaired by Martian technicians, and defended by Martian orbital staff. Earth says Mars has seized shared infrastructure. Mars says Earth has mistaken use for ownership. That is the legal argument. The practical result is simpler. Earth's messages to Mars are now delayed, filtered, or routed through Martian-controlled systems, not blocked entirely. Mars is not cutting itself off. That would be too dangerous. Families still need to communicate. Hospitals need to send records. Ships need navigation. Markets need settlement data. Civilian life cannot simply stop because the Assembly has raised a new flag. But official Earth command traffic is no longer moving automatically. It is being inspected. That is the word Mars uses. Inspected. Earth uses another word, intercepted. We are now 10 hours into the crisis, and the Earth-Luna markets have reacted sharply. Martian mineral futures have dropped. Water shipment contracts are frozen. Helium-3 speculation is unstable. Several large Earth-chartered corporations with Martian holdings have halted trading. Astrodyne Systems, which operates oxygen processing software in 7 major Martian settlements, has issued a statement calling the nationalization order a catastrophic breach of contract and a danger to civilian safety. Mars responded within 20 minutes. The Martian Assembly announced that all Astrodyne system access keys had already been mirrored, audited, and replaced by settlement engineers. In other words, if Astrodyne believed it could threaten oxygen access by withdrawing software support, Mars says that option is gone. A Martian technician from Hellas Basin put it more bluntly on a public channel. You can sue us for stealing the code after we finish breathing. That message has been shared more than 200 million times. The corporations are furious. Earth governments are alarmed. Martian public channels are euphoric. And somewhere in the middle, engineers on both planets are quietly asking a question that does not fit in slogans. What breaks first? Because systems this large do not like sudden political change. Air grids depend on maintenance schedules. Water plants depend on replacement membranes. Medical systems depend on imported catalysts. Agricultural domes depend on nutrient shipments. Orbital ports depend on Earth-manufactured navigation cores. Mars can declare ownership tonight. Keeping everything running next month is harder. That is Earth's leverage. Mars knows it. Earth knows it. Everyone knows it. The danger is that leverage over life support does not feel like leverage to the people under the dome. It feels like a weapon. And once air becomes a bargaining chip, every negotiation sounds like a threat. We are now approximately half a day into the Martian independence crisis. No shots fired, no war declared, but military language has entered the official statements. The Earth Security Council says it has ordered defensive readiness adjustments for assets in the Earth-Luna corridor and the Mars transfer lanes. The Martian Provisional Assembly says it has placed civil defense and orbital protection systems under unified command. Defensive readiness, civil defense, orbital protection. These are the phrases governments use before they admit they are moving weapons. Earth has not announced an enforcement fleet, but several Earth Navy vessels near Luna have altered trajectory. Mars has not announced a blockade, but Phobos Dockyard has suspended clearance for Earth-registered military craft. Earth says those restrictions have no legal standing. Mars says any armed vessel entering Martian restricted space without permission will be treated as hostile. That sentence alone has sent insurance rates across the Mars transfer route into free fall. Cargo ships are already requesting reroutes. Passenger transfers are being delayed. Medical shipments are being prioritized. Private ships carrying Earth citizens away from Mars are being told to wait for settlement clearance. Private ships carrying Martian citizens away from Earth are being told the same by Earth authorities. People who went to sleep last night as workers, students, tourists, contractors, spouses, engineers, and visiting grandparents are waking up today as possible nationals of opposing worlds. The paperwork alone could become a humanitarian crisis. A mother in Aries City sent this message to our relay. My daughter is on Earth for university. She is 19. She has never been involved in politics. She called crying because someone in her dorm asked if she was going to be detained. I don't know what to tell her. I don't know if she is a foreign student now. I don't know if I am a citizen of a country that exists. That is what independence means before the songs are written. Confusion, forms, borders where there were schedules, questions parents cannot answer. The Martian Declaration included protections for Earth citizens on Mars. The Earth response included protections for Martian-born residents on Earth. Both sides know mistreating civilians would harden the crisis instantly. Both sides also know fear does not always wait for policy. There are already reports of Earth corporate compounds on Mars requesting peacekeeper support that no longer exists. Martian authorities have surrounded several facilities, not with troops, according to their language, but with public safety units. Earth calls those units armed occupiers. Mars calls them settlement police. Corporate employees call them the people outside the door. The largest flashpoint so far is at Vale Station, where an Earth-chartered water extraction company refused to accept the Martian nationalization order. The company's director claimed its wells, pumps, and ice rights remained property of the Earth Development Consortium. Martian authorities gave him 30 minutes to transfer system access. He refused. At the end of the 30 minutes, Vale's engineers entered the control center and replaced the command staff. No shots were fired, no injuries reported. But the feed of Martian workers removing Earth corporate signage from the water control hall is now playing across Mars like a victory parade. On Earth, the same feed is being described as asset seizure. Again, language, one picture, two histories. We are now approaching the end of the first full crisis cycle. Earth has requested emergency arbitration through the Luna Treaty Court. Mars has rejected the request, not because it rejects negotiation, the Assembly says, but because the Luna Treaty Court derives authority from documents Mars has now revoked. Instead, Mars proposes direct talks between equals. Earth refuses to recognize equality. That is the deadlock. Earth will negotiate terms for restoring legal order. Mars will negotiate terms between sovereign governments. Both sides say they are willing to talk. Neither side is willing to enter the same room under the other's definition. This is how wars sometimes begin, not because people stop speaking, because they use the same words for different realities. The Martian speaker, Amara Kale, delivered a second address this evening from Aries City. She stood before a plain red backdrop, not a flag exactly, but a field of rust-colored fabric with a single white arc across it, representing the horizon line over the northern plains. Her speech was calm, not triumphant, not theatrical. She said, "We do not seek war with Earth. We do not seek revenge for the years of extraction, insult, delay, and debt. We do not deny that Earth gave Mars its first machines. But machines do not raise children. Charters do not repair pressure leaks at 3 a.m. Investors do not bury the bodies when a dome fails. Mars has been governed by distance for too long. Tonight we choose proximity. We choose those who live with the consequences." Then she repeated the phrase, "Mars belongs to those who breathe its dust." Earth officials called the address inflammatory. Martian channels called it restrained. Both descriptions may be true, because what sounds restrained to the people demanding recognition can sound like provocation to the people losing control. The United Earth Council chair responded 2 hours later. He spoke from Geneva, surrounded by flags of Earth member states and the blue-white emblem of the Interplanetary Development Charter. He said, "Mars is not a colony in chains. Mars is the greatest cooperative achievement in human history. It was built by the labor, sacrifice, funding, and vision of all humankind. No temporary political faction has the right to seize infrastructure created by generations, endanger civilians, and fracture the unity that allowed our species to become multiplanetary. Then he said the sentence, Martian channels are now replaying with fury. Mars cannot be permitted to hold humanity's future hostage. The response from Ari's city was immediate, a public banner projected over the Assembly Dome. We are not your future, we are our present. That is where the rhetoric stands tonight. Mars says it is alive now. Earth says it is responsible for all humanity's tomorrow. There may be no argument harder to resolve than two worlds claiming moral authority over time itself. We are now roughly 16 hours into the crisis. The first independent analysis from the Interplanetary Policy Institute has been released, and it is grim. The report states that Earth has four realistic options. First, accept direct negotiations with Mars as a de facto equal, politically painful but least likely to produce immediate conflict. Second, impose economic sanctions and attempt to isolate Mars financially. Slow, uncertain, and potentially dangerous because Mars controls several critical export streams. Third, send an enforcement mission to retake orbital relay and dockyard infrastructure. Legally consistent with Earth's position, but militarily risky. Fourth, do nothing and allow Martian independence to become reality through time. The report concludes that Earth is unlikely to choose the fourth option and politically reluctant to choose the first. That leaves sanctions or enforcement. Mars, according to the same report, has fewer options but stronger local control. It can hold the relays, it can control life support, it can threaten shipment delays, it can make military enforcement expensive, but it cannot survive long-term isolation without severe hardship. Both sides have leverage, both sides have vulnerabilities, both sides can hurt the other, and that is exactly why the next decision matters. We have received a message from a listener on Luna, a dock supervisor named Wren. He writes, people on Earth keep talking like Mars is far away. People on Mars keep talking like Earth is old and heavy. From Luna, both look close enough to hit each other. I work cargo. I know how fragile the routes are. One bad order, one scared captain, one missile lock, one collision near a fuel depot, and suddenly everyone discovers that civilization is just a schedule with pressure seals. That line may be the clearest warning of the night. Civilization is a schedule with pressure seals. Mars has interrupted the schedule. Earth is deciding whether to force it back into place. We are now entering the second crisis cycle. Earth has announced the formation of a stabilization task group to ensure the safety of interplanetary navigation, civilian shipping, and treaty infrastructure. Mars calls it an enforcement fleet by another name. The task group reportedly includes 3 Earth Navy command vessels, 6 escort craft, 2 electronic warfare platforms, several logistic ships, and a legal inspection delegation. A legal inspection delegation. That detail has drawn bitter laughter on Martian channels. If the ships arrive with weapons, Mars says, the lawyers will not make them less armed. Earth says the task group will not enter Martian restricted zones unless necessary. Mars says Earth does not get to decide what is necessary in Martian orbit. The task group is not yet in Mars space. Depending on its current route and acceleration profile, it may take several days to reach the Phobos corridor. That gives both sides time to negotiate. It also gives both sides time to prepare. Preparation can prevent war. Preparation can also make war easier to begin. The Martian Provisional Assembly has ordered all major settlements into what it calls Sovereignty Readiness Condition 2. This includes emergency supplies distributed to residential dome sectors, pressure doors tested, backup oxygen reserves confirmed, civil defense drills scheduled, public assembly points assigned, orbital traffic reduced, non-essential surface travel suspended, settlement schools moved to remote instruction. Mars says these measures are precautionary. Earth says they are militarization of civilian space, but on Mars, civilian space is always militarized in one sense. Every wall is armor against the planet outside. Every door is a defensive system against vacuum. Every habitat is already a bunker because the environment has been attacking since the first settlement. That is another asymmetry Earth often forgets. On Earth, war comes to cities. On Mars, every city was built as if war with nature was permanent. We are now 24 hours into the Martian independence crisis, one full day since the declaration. No shots fired, no confirmed deaths. But the map of human authority has already changed. Mars controls its relays. Mars controls its life support. Mars controls its ports. Earth controls recognition, finance, long-range shipping, military superiority, and the legitimacy of the old legal order. Both sides claim to be acting defensively. Both sides say the other is escalating. Both sides are probably right. The strongest message we have received tonight comes from Ares City, not from a politician, from a maintenance worker named Selah Mar, who recorded a message in front of an oxygen plant after finishing a 12-hour shift. She said, "I don't care what Earth calls us. Colony, territory, sector, asset, dependency. I care who shows up when a scrubber fails. I care who knows which valve sticks in winter. I care who can hear when the pump tone changes. We run this place because we have to." Tonight, the assembly put words to what our hands already knew. That message is being called the scrubber speech. It may become famous, not because it is elegant, because it says the thing at the heart of this crisis. Sovereignty on Mars did not begin with the declaration. It began years ago in maintenance logs, night repairs, emergency drills, improvised fixes, local knowledge, and the simple fact that Earth authority was always minutes away at light speed and months away by ship. Mars has lived with the delay. Now Earth is learning what the delay has cost it. We are receiving updated reports on the stabilization task group. Earth officials insist the group's mission is to protect navigation rights and ensure the safety of Earth citizens and treaty infrastructure. Mars has warned that any attempt to dock at Phobos without Martian clearance will be considered a violation of sovereign space. Phobos is likely to become the first major point of confrontation. It is small, irregular, heavily industrialized, and strategically essential. Phobos Dockyard handles fuel staging, ship repair, cargo transfer, military inspection, and emergency refuge for vessels entering or leaving Mars orbit. Whoever controls Phobos controls the throat of Martian orbital logistics. Mars currently controls Phobos. Earth says Phobos was developed under shared treaty authority. Mars says shared authority ended with the declaration. There are already Earth-registered vessels docked there. There are Martian security units on board the station. There are civilian crews from both worlds. There are fuel tanks, repair scaffolds, pressurized transfer tubes, and enough orbital traffic hardware to make any military confrontation dangerously complicated. If there is a first battle, Phobos is where many analysts fear it will happen. We are now 28 hours into the crisis. The Luna Mediation Forum has offered to host emergency talks. Mars says it will attend if addressed as the Martian Provisional Government. Earth says it will attend if Mars participates as the Martian Provisional Assembly under Earth-Mars Charter Authority. That may sound like a small wording dispute. It is not. If Earth calls Mars a government, it grants de facto recognition. If Mars attends as an assembly under Charter Authority, it accepts the legal order it just rejected. So the talks have not begun because the nameplate on the table may decide the war before anyone sits down. There is a listener message from Ganymede that has been circulating among outer system relays. A teacher writes, "My students asked today whether they are Earth citizens, outer settlements citizens, or just people waiting for Earth and Mars to decide what the word human means. I told them they are human first, but I'm no longer sure the governments agree." That is another layer of this crisis. If Mars can declare independence, what about the belt habitats? What about Jovian stations? What about Titan? What about generation ships under charter command? Earth fears losing Mars, but Earth also fears the precedent. Mars is not only a planet tonight. Mars is an example, and examples travel faster than fleets. We are now 32 hours into the Martian independence crisis. Earth's Stabilization Task Group has confirmed course toward Mars. The ships are not moving at attack speed, that is important. Their burn profile is consistent with controlled approach and visible signaling, not immediate assault. But they are moving. Mars has activated orbital defense tracking. The Martian assembly says it will not fire unless fired upon or unless Earth vessels cross declared restricted boundaries around Phobos, Deimos, Olympus Relay Crown, or civilian habitat corridors. Earth says those restricted boundaries are unlawful. There is the danger in one sentence. Mars has drawn lines Earth does not recognize. Earth is approaching those lines. The first day was about declarations. The second day is becoming about distance. How close is too close? How much warning is enough? How long does a ship have to change course before a defensive system decides intent? How many people need to approve a shot when the delay to Earth is too long for permission? War between planets does not begin with anger alone. It begins with geometry, vectors, velocities, exclusion zones, response windows, navigation errors, a radar ping interpreted as targeting, a targeting scan described as navigation, a warning ignored because the other side did not accept the authority behind it. The first battle, if it comes, may not begin because someone wants war. It may begin because two maps disagree. We are now approaching the end of part 1 of this continuing broadcast. Here's where things stand. Mars has declared independence. Earth has rejected the declaration. Mars has nationalized life support systems, orbital relays, water infrastructure, and port authority. Earth-chartered corporations have filed emergency claims, but Martian engineers are physically in control of the systems. The Olympus Relay Crown is under Martian authority. Phobos Dockyard is under Martian authority. Earth has formed a stabilization task group and confirmed its movement toward Mars. Mars has declared restricted zones around critical infrastructure. Luna has offered mediation, but talks have stalled over what to call the Martian delegation. Markets are unstable. Cargo routes are disrupted. Civilians on both worlds are frightened. No shots have been fired. But the space between the worlds is filling with ships, warnings, laws, slogans, and fear. A day ago, Mars was a territory arguing over a charter renewal. Tonight, Mars is acting like a nation. Earth is acting like a government that has not decided whether it is facing a rebellion, a legal dispute, or the beginning of a war. The difference matters. A legal dispute can be settled. A rebellion can be suppressed. A nation must be negotiated with, and Mars has made its position clear. Mars belongs to those who breathe its dust. This is Jon Vale, Interplanetary Public Relay, Earth-Luna Band. We will continue our coverage as the Earth Stabilization Task Group approaches the Martian corridor. The next phase of this crisis may unfold near Phobos. Stay with us. You're listening to Interplanetary Public Relay, Earth-Luna Band. I'm Jon Vale. We are now well into the second full day of the Martian independence crisis, and the distance between Earth and Mars no longer feels like empty space. It feels like a fuse. Earth's Stabilization Task Group is continuing toward the Martian corridor. The official mission remains, in Earth's language, the protection of treaty infrastructure, civilian navigation, and lawful interplanetary order. Mars continues to describe that same task group as an enforcement fleet, not a stabilization task group, not an inspection mission, not a legal escort, an enforcement fleet. Those words matter because ships are now moving under the weight of them. For the first day of this crisis, the conflict was fought through declarations, relay access, corporate systems, legal authorities, and the quiet seizure of life support infrastructure. Mars did not fire a weapon. Earth did not send a strike order. The war, if that is where we are going, began with passwords, with command keys, with software licenses revoked and replaced, with flags lowered in water processing stations, with engineers standing in control rooms and deciding which government's authorization codes they would accept. Now the crisis has entered orbital space. And orbital space is less forgiving than politics. A ship cannot pause in the middle of a sentence. A vessel on approach has momentum. A defense system tracking that vessel has thresholds. A crew receiving contradictory orders has seconds where diplomats have days. This is the dangerous part, the part where intent becomes less important than trajectory. A little over 40 hours after the declaration, the Martian Provisional Assembly issued its most direct warning yet. The statement was addressed to the commanders of the Earth Stabilization Task Group. It read, "Any armed vessel entering the Phobos Civil Dockyard Corridor without Martian clearance will be considered in violation of sovereign transit restrictions. Mars does not seek engagement. Mars will not permit armed reclamation of Martian infrastructure. Civilian ships will be protected. Earth military craft are ordered to hold beyond the outer approach boundary." Earth responded less than an hour later. The United Earth Council called the Martian Boundary Declaration unlawful, provocative, and without standing under interplanetary treaty law. The Council's reply read, "Phobos Dockyard is treaty infrastructure. Mars cannot unilaterally revoke shared access or obstruct lawful inspection. Earth vessels will proceed under stabilization authority. Any interference with their movement will be the responsibility of the unlawful Martian command structure." There it is. Each side has now said that if something happens near Phobos, the other side will be responsible. That is how governments prepare history before history occurs. They write the blame in advance. We are receiving updated civilian traffic reports from the Mars corridor. Cargo vessels have been ordered away from Phobos unless carrying medical supplies, fuel stabilization equipment, or emergency life support cargo. Several passenger ships have been redirected to Deimos holding lanes. At least 16 private vessels are currently waiting for clearance between Mars, transfer approach, and the outer dockyard control zone. Those ships carry people that cannot get lost in the geometry, children returning from school on Earth, Martian technicians coming home from contract work around Luna, Earth corporate staff trying to leave Ares City, medical patients being transferred between gravity environments, pilots who signed freight contracts before Mars was a country, or before it called itself one. They are not the crisis makers, but they are now inside the crisis. A captain aboard the civilian cargo hauler Blue Meridian sent this message through an open traffic channel. "We are holding where Mars tells us to hold, and where Earth tells us we do not have to hold. I have 200 tons of pressure sealant in my cargo bays and a crew that would like not to become a legal argument with engines. Someone should decide who owns this lane before a nervous weapons officer decides for everyone." That message has been forwarded across nearly every pilot band in the system. Someone should decide who owns this lane before a nervous weapons officer decides for everyone. That is the fear. Not that anyone wants the first shot, that someone will create it while trying to prevent it. The Earth Task Group is now within the broad Mars approach envelope. Not Phobos restricted space? Not yet. But close enough that both sides are tracking each other in real time. The lead Earth vessel is the UES Ardent, a command ship built for long-range enforcement, patrol coordination, and electronic control operations. It is escorted by 6 smaller vessels and accompanied by 2 legal inspection transports, which Earth continues to mention in every statement, as if lawyers aboard a fleet make it less of a fleet. Mars has no equivalent navy, not in the Earth sense. Mars has orbital defense platforms, converted industrial craft, armed tugs, rail-assisted patrol skiffs, Phobos station security, Deimos traffic interceptors, and mining vessels that were never designed as warships but were designed to survive rock strikes, engine failures, and hard docking accidents. That matters. Earth built ships to project authority. Mars built machines to keep infrastructure alive. In war, the difference may not be as clear as it sounds. We have received a written analysis from Captain Ilya Sorin, retired from the Earth Orbital Navy, now teaching at the Luna War College. He writes, "Earth has the stronger fleet. That is not in question, but Earth is operating at the end of a political leash and a logistical cord. Mars is operating at home. Local defense does not need to win a fleet engagement in the traditional sense. It only needs to make enforcement too expensive, too slow, or too dangerous near critical civilian infrastructure. He continues, the first side to damage a habitat loses moral control of the war. That sentence has been repeated across policy channels all morning. The first side to damage a habitat loses moral control of the war. Both sides know it. Both sides are now maneuvering around infrastructure that cannot afford to be hit. Phobos Dockyard is not a battlefield in the old sense. It is a work site, a port, a fuel depot, a machine shop, a traffic node, a pressure habitat, a civilian workplace, and tonight a possible trigger for interplanetary war. We are now nearly 2 days into the crisis, and Earth has announced sanctions. The first sanctions target Martian assembly members, settlement banks, relay administrators, and companies that comply with the nationalization orders. Earth has frozen external accounts linked to the Provisional Assembly and suspended several Martian bond instruments. Mars responded by suspending repayment on the Infrastructure Debt Compact. That is not symbolic. The compact is the financial foundation of Earth's legal claim. It is also the mechanism by which Mars has paid for generations of settlement infrastructure. Mars says the debt is illegitimate because it was imposed on populations who had no equal representation in the system that created it. Earth says failure to repay confirms Mars is attempting to steal civilization-scale investment. Markets have reacted badly, very badly. The Earth-Luna exchange halted trading in Martian infrastructure bonds twice. The Helios Freight Index fell 18%. Insurance underwriters have stopped issuing new policies for Mars-bound commercial cargo. Several water futures contracts have gone limit down. That may sound distant from the lives of people under the domes. It is not. Insurance determines whether ships launch. Ships determine whether replacement parts arrive. Replacement parts determine whether air handlers keep working 6 months from now. This is why Martian independence is not only a flag and a speech, it is a spreadsheet full of oxygen. We have listener messages from both worlds. A woman in Ares City writes, my husband works at the North Air Plant. He has not been home in 30 hours. He says everything is stable. He says not to worry, but when he says stable, he means the machines are working. When I say stable, I mean whether my children will wake up in the same country tomorrow. Those are not the same thing. A man in London writes, my taxes helped build Mars. My grandparents voted for the first settlement subsidies. My country sent people, money, materials, science. Now Mars says it belongs only to the people living there. I understand their anger, but I also feel like something has been taken from all of us. Was Mars not humanity's project? A Martian-born student at Luna University writes, I keep hearing Earth people say Mars was humanity's project. I'm human, my parents are human, my little brother is human. Why does humanity always seem to mean Earth when someone is asking, who gets control? That question is not going away. Why does humanity mean Earth? For centuries, it did. Then humans left. Now language is catching up late, and politics is punishing everyone for the delay. The Stabilization Task Group has entered what Earth calls the outer inspection approach. Mars calls it the warning zone. The difference is not cosmetic. According to Martian Orbital Command, Earth vessels must reduce velocity, broadcast full transponder logs, and accept Martian traffic guidance before proceeding closer to Phobos. According to Earth, those requirements are illegitimate. The UES Ardent has reduced velocity, but not as much as Mars demanded. It is broadcasting transponder logs, but not full weapons status. It has acknowledged Martian traffic guidance, but has not accepted Martian authority. That is the entire crisis in miniature, each side complying just enough to claim restraint, each side refusing just enough to preserve its argument. The lead Martian vessel in the corridor is not a warship. It is the MPS Harrow, a heavy tug registered to Phobos Dockyard, normally used to move damaged cargo frames, fuel tanks, and construction modules. Tonight, the Harrow is positioned across the inner dockyard lane with 2 smaller escort skiffs nearby. Earth calls this obstruction. Mars calls it traffic control. The Harrow is not built like a military vessel, but heavy tugs are dangerous machines. They have powerful engines, reinforced bows, grappling systems, cutting arms, and enough mass to ruin a ship's day at close range. A tug does not need a cannon to be a threat. It only needs to be in the way. The Ardent has ordered the Harrow to clear the lane. The Harrow has ordered the Ardent to halt. Both messages were polite. Both messages were final. We are now receiving the first delayed feed from the Phobos corridor. Because of relay filtering, military encryption, and conflicting data releases, everything we are about to report may be revised. That needs to be understood. Between Earth and Mars, even truth has a transit time. The Ardent continued approach at reduced burn. The Harrow remained in the lane. A Martian traffic controller repeated the restricted boundary warning. Earth Command replied that the task group was conducting lawful inspection under treaty authority. Mars replied that treaty authority had been revoked. Earth replied that revocation was not recognized. Mars replied that entry would be considered unauthorized. Then, for nearly 6 minutes, the official transcript shows nothing but navigation, calls, range markers, and collision avoidance requests. No threats, no shouting, no dramatic final warning, just professional voices trying not to create a war while moving large objects through a narrow corridor. Then the Harrow shifted position. Earth says the tug accelerated across the Ardent's path in a hostile maneuver. Mars says the tug corrected drift after Earth's escort vessel entered a civilian traffic lane. A collision warning triggered. An Earth escort fired a close-range defensive burst. Mars says that was the first shot. Earth says it was automatic collision protection. The defensive burst struck the Harrow's forward maneuvering assembly. The Harrow lost attitude control. One Martian escort skiff fired on the Earth escort. Earth returned fire. Within 30 seconds, the Phobos corridor was at war. We have confirmation of casualties. Not numbers yet, but casualties. The Martian tug Harrow is disabled. One Earth escort vessel is damaged. One Martian skiff has been destroyed or rendered non-functional. Debris is moving through the outer dockyard approach. Phobos dockyard has sealed civilian transfer tubes. Earth task group vessels have moved to defensive spread. Mars has activated orbital defense systems. Both governments are now accusing the other of starting the first armed conflict between Earth and Mars. This is no longer only a crisis, it is a war. The Phobos incident, as people are already calling it, has lasted less than an hour, and already both sides have built complete histories around it. Earth's version: a Martian industrial vessel obstructed lawful inspection, maneuvered dangerously toward an Earth command group, and triggered defensive fire. Martian escorts then escalated by attacking Earth vessels. Mars's version: Earth vessels violated a clearly declared civilian dockyard corridor, ignored repeated warnings, fired on a Martian traffic control tug, and then attacked Martian defense craft responding to protect Phobos. Both versions contain pieces that may be true. Both omit pieces the other side considers central. The Harrow was in the way. The Ardent was still advancing. The defensive burst hit first. The skiff fired back. Everything after that depends on where you think lawful authority lived at the moment the first weapon discharged. Earth says authority remained with Earth. Mars says authority had already moved. People died in the space between those claims. We are receiving casualty numbers now. Preliminary Earth report: 7 injured aboard the escort vessel UES Calder, 2 critical, no confirmed dead. Preliminary Martian report: 12 dead or missing from the Harrow and escort skiff crews, with additional injuries aboard Phobos dockyard from debris impact and emergency decompression in one exterior maintenance bay. These numbers are early. They will change. They always change. But 12 dead or missing on the Martian side. Earth injuries confirmed. First blood in the first Earth-Mars war. The Martian Provisional Assembly has declared a state of planetary defense. The United Earth Council has declared the Martian attack on the task group an act of armed rebellion. Neither side has formally used the word war in its central statement. Everyone else has. We are now receiving emergency advisories from Mars. Ares City has entered full civil defense posture. Vale's station has sealed non-essential surface access. Hellas Agricultural Basin has moved harvest workers into inner shelters. Phobos dockyard remains sealed. Deimos traffic net is closed to non-military routing. Olympus Relay Crown is operating under defense authority. All Martian settlements are being told to conserve water, check household pressure masks, and prepare for potential cargo interruption. On Earth, the Council is urging calm and describing the conflict as limited. Limited. That is another word that history often punishes. Limited action, limited engagement, limited casualties, limited war. Every side thinks it can limit the fire it starts. The question is whether vacuum agrees. The Phobos corridor remains active. Earth Task Group vessels have not withdrawn. Martian defense platforms are tracking them. Mars has moved additional orbital assets near Phobos and Deimos. Earth has ordered reinforcements from the Luna Naval Reserve into standby. The Luna Mediation Forum has called for an immediate ceasefire and emergency talks. Neither side has accepted yet. We have a message from a Phobos dockyard mechanic that came through a civilian channel before the station locked down. He said, "I was in Bay 4 when the alarm hit. The wall shook like something had punched the whole moon. We sealed the tube manually. I don't know who fired. I don't care right now. There are people outside the pressure line and we cannot reach them because every rescue movement has to be cleared by two governments that both say the other one is murdering us." That is what war looks like before the maps. A mechanic at a door, people outside the pressure line, two governments arguing over clearance. We are now several hours past the first shots. The Earth Task Group has established what it calls a temporary defensive perimeter outside Phobos dockyard. Mars says Earth has created an unlawful blockade. Earth says Mars has militarized civilian infrastructure. Mars says civilian infrastructure is being defended because Earth brought warships to it. The words are hardening. That may be more dangerous than the weapons. A weapon can be stood down. A hardened word becomes a promise people die to keep. The first images from Phobos have been released by Martian channels. The Harrow is tumbling slowly, tether lines trailing, one forward assembly torn open. Rescue drones are approaching, but debris is making movement difficult. One escort skiff is a bright broken scatter near the dockyard shadow. Phobos itself hangs behind it, gray and irregular, covered in lights and ports and scars of industry. Mars broadcasts the images with no music, no narration, just the names of the missing. Earth networks are not carrying the full feed yet. They say the images are unverified and possibly edited. Maybe they are, but on Mars, people are watching. And names matter more than verification when the names are yours. Earth has released imagery of the damaged UES Calder, a thin black wound along the hull, burn scars near the defensive array, med crews moving through a pressurized tunnel. The Earth caption reads, "Attacked while conducting lawful stabilization." The Martian caption on its own feeds reads, "Warship damaged after firing on dock workers. Same hull, different truth." We are now entering the third day since the declaration and the first day since the shooting began. The term Martian Independence War is being used across unofficial channels. Earth continues to call it the Martian Armed Rebellion. Mars calls it the War of Recognition. War names are never neutral. They decide who was born and who betrayed. The United Earth Council has authorized expanded military action to secure treaty infrastructure and protect Earth nationals. The Martian Provisional Assembly has authorized defensive strikes against Earth military assets operating inside declared Martian exclusion zones. That means the shooting near Phobos may not remain near Phobos. Orbital relays, traffic stations, sensor platforms, fuel depots, electronic warfare nodes, navigation buoys. These are now potential targets, though both sides say they will avoid civilian infrastructure. Again, both sides say that. Both sides always say that. We are receiving reports of electronic attacks on the Olympus Relay Crown. Mars says Earth attempted to penetrate relay command systems through old treaty maintenance backdoors. Earth says it conducted a lawful attempt to restore shared access to illegally seized infrastructure. Mars says the attempt failed. Earth has not confirmed whether it failed. Our relay quality has degraded twice in the past hour. Interplanetary public relay engineers tell us the disruptions are due to routing congestion and encryption conflicts, not direct attack on this station. For the first time since this crisis began, we are not only reporting a war, we are reporting through one. That changes everything. When relays are targets, every statement becomes a battlefield. When routing changes, rumors outrun corrections. When feeds drop, each side fills the silence. We are going to be careful. If we do not know, we will say we do not know. If a report comes from Earth only, we will say that. If a report comes from Mars only, we will say that. If both sides agree, we will still ask what they are not saying. We have received the first official Earth casualty update from the Phobos incident. 2 Earth service members have died from injuries aboard the UES Calder. 9 injured. Mars has updated its own count. 15 dead or missing from the Harrow and escort skiff crews. 21 injured across Phobos dockyard, including civilians. Those numbers are not comparable as moral arguments. They are people. 2 dead from Earth. 15 dead or missing from Mars. 21 injured on Phobos. A crisis that began with a declaration now has funerals waiting behind it. The Earth Council chair has addressed the public. He called the dead victims of Martian escalation. He said Earth would not be intimidated by unlawful violence. He said the task group would remain in position until treaty infrastructure was secured and Earth citizens protected. Speaker Amara Kale addressed Mars minutes later. She called the dead the first citizens killed defending Martian sovereignty. She said Mars would not surrender Phobos, the relays, or the life support systems. She said, Earth has discovered that Mars is not an argument. Mars is a place, and places defend themselves. That line is now everywhere on Martian channels. Earth commentators call it militaristic. Martians call it obvious. Earth has begun moving additional naval assets into the Mars transfer corridor. Mars has begun dispersing orbital equipment from fixed stations. That is a sign of preparation for wider conflict. Fixed infrastructure is vulnerable. Mobile systems survive longer. Several Martian industrial tugs have disappeared from public traffic maps. That could be routine transponder shutdown. It could be defensive redeployment. It could be the beginning of a strategy Earth may find difficult to counter. Mars does not need a traditional Navy to make the orbit around Mars dangerous. It has thousands of machines already there: fuel haulers, ore carriers, survey drones, construction frames, docking tugs, mirror adjusters, debris sweepers, mass drivers. Any industrial system that moves heavy things through vacuum can become a weapon if desperate people give the order. Earth knows how to fight fleets. Mars knows how to work the local machinery. The war may not look like either side planned. We have a listener message from an Earth Navy spouse in Manila. She writes, My wife is aboard one of the ships in the task group. I have not heard from her since before the Phobos incident. The news keeps saying Earth vessels, Mars vessels, assets, platforms, task groups. Please remember there are people in those hulls. Whatever anyone thinks about the politics, there are people doing what they were ordered to do, hoping the next alarm is not for them. And from a Martian dock worker in Deimos orbit, my brother was on the Harrow. Earth says he obstructed lawful inspection. He was a tug pilot. He moved cargo frames. He complained about bad coffee and sent me pictures of his plants. If Earth needs him to be a rebel, to feel better about killing him, that is their problem. He was my brother first. This is how war narrows the universe. Worlds become sides. Ships become targets. People become proof. We are now deep into the 3rd day, and the war has spread beyond Phobos. Earth electronic warfare platforms attempted to degrade Martian control over the Deimos traffic net. Mars responded by shutting down several navigation channels and shifting to local encrypted routing. Civilian traffic across the Mars system is now severely restricted. Several ships are stranded in holding orbits. A medical transport from Hellas to Ganymede has been delayed. Mars says Earth interference caused the delay. Earth says Martian routing closures caused the delay. The patient on board is a child requiring low-gravity cardiac surgery. Her name has not been released. Her existence is already being used by both sides. That is another cruelty of war. Even a sick child becomes evidence. The Luna Mediation Forum has proposed a humanitarian corridor agreement. Earth says it will accept if Mars allows inspection of corridor traffic. Mars says it will accept if Earth recognizes Martian control of corridor routing. Again, the same problem. Human need trapped behind legal recognition. We are receiving reports of the first direct strike on relay infrastructure. Mars claims Earth disabled 2 outer relay repeaters linked to Olympus Crown. Earth claims the repeaters were being used for military targeting coordination and were lawfully neutralized. Mars says they carried civilian medical traffic. Both may be true in war. Civilian and military systems often share wires, power, routes, data, especially in space, especially on Mars. No one wins a war fought through life support. That phrase has been used by relief groups all day. No one wins a war fought through life support, but both sides are now fighting through the systems that carry air, water, navigation, medicine, heat, and warning. The first territory Mars seized was air. Now Earth and Mars are fighting over the channels that tell the air where to go. As the third day closes, the situation is this. Mars holds Phobos dockyard, though damaged. Earth holds position outside the Phobos corridor with additional forces inbound. Mars controls the Olympus relay crown, but portions are under electronic attack. Earth has imposed sanctions and begun what it calls limited military enforcement. Mars has declared planetary defense and authorized strikes against Earth military assets inside its exclusion zones. Civilian traffic is disrupted. Humanitarian corridors are not yet established. Casualty lists are incomplete. Both sides claim restraint. Both sides are escalating. This is not yet total war. That is the good news. This is no longer peace. That is the truth. We will continue in our next broadcast segment with the widening relay war, the first blockade threats, and the strike near Hellas Basin that may become the moral turning point of this conflict. For now, this is Jon Vale, Interplanetary Public Relay, Earth-Luna Band. Between Earth and Mars, even victory has a delay. Stay with us. You're listening to Interplanetary Public Relay, Earth-Luna Band. I'm Jon Vale. We are now several days into the Martian Independence War. Earth still does not officially call it that. In Earth Council statements, this remains a stabilization action against an unlawful armed rebellion. In Martian Assembly statements, this is the war of recognition. On cargo bands, pilot channels, family relays, medical networks, and the public forums where people speak before officials decide what they are allowed to mean, it is already the Earth-Mars War. The name may change later. Names usually do. Governments rename wars after they have enough distance to make them useful. People living through them use whatever words get them through the night, and tonight the word is war. Since the Phobos incident, the conflict has widened. Not in the old way. Not armies crossing fields, not cities surrounded by tanks, not flags advancing over hills. This war is being fought through orbits, relays, docking permissions, navigation corridors, fuel depots, shipyards, software access, traffic authority, and the terrifying question of which systems can be attacked without killing the civilians who depend on them. That question has no clean answer. The first phase was declaration. The second was confrontation. The third is infrastructure. Both Earth and Mars are now trying to hurt each other without making themselves responsible for a catastrophe large enough to end the war politically. That is a narrow line. In space, narrow lines kill people. The relay war has intensified. Earth electronic warfare platforms continue attempting to disrupt Martian control of the Olympus relay crown. Mars continues shifting traffic through hardened local networks, private settlement lasers, military routers, and improvised backup channels built for dust storms, not war. The result is a communications environment that changes by the hour. Some civilian messages pass quickly. Others vanish for half a day. Medical files arrive without attachments. Legal orders arrive after the situation they describe has already changed. Family messages are delayed, duplicated, cut in half, resent, corrupted, and sometimes delivered to the wrong settlement. A mother in Aries City receives a message from her son on Luna saying, I'm safe. Don't worry. 12 hours after a later message saying, I don't know if they're letting us leave. A miner in Vale's station receives an evacuation instruction for a sector that never evacuated. A ship captain near Deimos receives 3 routing orders from 3 authorities, each claiming the other 2 are invalid. War has turned time into shrapnel. The delays are not just technical, they are emotional. A death notice that arrives late does not make the person less dead. A correction that arrives late does not undo the panic. A ceasefire offer that arrives late may reach a commander after the shot has already been fired. That is one of the central dangers of an interplanetary war. Between Earth and Mars, even mercy can be delayed. The Earth Council has announced a partial blockade of Martian military-linked exports. They are not calling it a blockade. The official phrase is controlled interdiction of strategic materials. Mars calls it a blockade. Neutral trade authorities call it a blockade in everything but name. The order targets shipments of refined metals, reactor components, ship-grade ceramics, fuel catalysts, and precision-manufactured parts believed to support Martian defense systems. Earth says civilian food, medicine, and life support supplies are exempt. Mars says Earth does not get to decide which Martian supply chains are civilian and which are military when every pressure valve can serve both. That is the problem again. On Mars, the same alloy that repairs a defense drone may repair a hospital airlock. The same navigation core that guides a patrol skiff may guide an ambulance shuttle. The same fuel shipment that powers a military platform may keep heat flowing to a settlement on the edge of a dust front. Earth says it will apply discretion. Mars says discretion from a distance is just another name for control. We have received a statement from the Neutral Shipping Cooperative, which operates many of the civilian cargo vessels between Earth, Luna, Mars, and the Belt. Their statement reads, commercial carriers cannot be expected to determine sovereign status, military utility, or political legitimacy while under threat from armed vessels. We request immediate establishment of protected transit lanes and unified cargo inspection standards recognized by both Earth and Mars. Without such standards, civilian shipping will continue to decline. That is polite. The message behind it is not. Pilots are refusing routes. Insurers are refusing coverage. Crews are refusing to carry cargo that may be stopped by Earth, seized by Mars, or targeted by either side. A war between planets can begin with ships firing. It can also begin with ships staying home. Mars is already feeling the supply shock. Hellas Agricultural Basin reports fertilizer shortages if the shipping interruption continues beyond 2 weeks. Utopia Planitia Industrial Zone reports delays in microfilter replacements. Aries City medical centers are rationing imported organ regeneration compounds. Vale Station has suspended non-essential construction due to uncertainty over sealant shipments. Mars insists essential systems remain stable. Earth insists sanctions are targeted, but the people standing in ration lines do not measure policy by intention. They measure it by what is missing from the shelf. We are now at the point in the war where both sides have discovered that pain travels through systems faster than official responsibility. Earth says it has not cut medicine. Mars says medicine is delayed because Earth cut the roots that carry it. Earth says it has not targeted civilian food. Mars says agricultural inputs are civilian food before food exists. Earth says military-linked materials must be restricted. Mars says everything on Mars is linked to survival, including defense. No one wins a war fought through life support. The phrase is being painted on walls in Aries City. It is appearing on protest signs outside Earth Council offices. It is spoken by relief groups, priests, pilots, doctors, and station engineers. It is the kind of phrase officials dislike because it is too simple to answer. No one wins a war fought through life support. And yet, both worlds continue. We are receiving our first reports of fighting beyond the Phobos corridor. Mars claims to have disabled an Earth relay inspection drone near Deimos. Earth says the drone was unarmed and operating in legal space. Mars says the drone ignored a restricted zone warning. Earth says Mars cannot declare restricted zones around treaty infrastructure. You have heard this pattern before. A line drawn, a line rejected, a machine crosses, a machine is destroyed. Then both sides read law over the debris. No casualties reported in that incident. That is the good news. But every destroyed drone becomes proof for someone. Every proof becomes permission for the next escalation. The most serious development so far is the attack near Hellas Basin. We need to be careful with this report because the facts remain contested, and the consequences are already enormous. Earth says it conducted a precision strike against a Martian military radar and targeting station located on the northern rim of Hellas Basin. According to Earth, the station had been providing targeting data for orbital defense systems threatening Earth vessels in the Mars corridor. Earth says the strike was limited, lawful, and intended to reduce further casualties by degrading Martian military capability. Mars says Earth fired on a dual-use emergency sensor site less than 4 kilometers from an agricultural dome complex. Mars says the strike damaged crop pressure sections, shattered 2 irrigation conduits, and caused decompression injuries among civilian workers. Mars has released images, rows of broken greenhouse glass under red dust, emergency crews in pressure suits moving through collapsed support frames, a child's training mask lying beside a torn thermal blanket, workers carrying bodies or injured civilians through a yellow-lit lock corridor. Earth says the images are being used as propaganda and that secondary damage may have been caused by Martian defense interceptors. Mars says Earth is hiding behind the phrase secondary damage because it cannot say it missed. The truth may take days. The political effect took minutes. Across Mars, the Hellas strike has become the image of the war. Not Phobos, not the Harrow, not the escort skiff. Hellas, a place where food is grown under glass, a place every Martian understands as civilian even if military sensors stood nearby. On Earth, officials are urging patience until battle assessment is complete. On Mars, no one is waiting for Earth's assessment. The Martian Assembly has declared 3 days of mourning. Speaker Amara Kale appeared before the assembly without the red backdrop this time. Behind her were the names of the confirmed dead from Hellas, scrolling slowly in white. She said, "Earth has asked the system to believe that Mars cannot govern itself responsibly. Today, Earth struck the farms that feed our children and called it precision." Then she paused for a long time. When she spoke again, her voice was quieter. "There are people on Earth who will say this was a mistake. Understand us clearly. The mistake was believing you could fire through our sky and still claim to protect us. Earth leaders have condemned the address as inflammatory and misleading, but the images from Hellas are moving faster than the corrections. That is another rule of war. Images arrive as truth. Explanations arrive as argument. We are now several hours past the Hellas strike, and protests have broken out on Earth. Not only pro-Mars protests, not only anti-war protests. There are also rallies supporting Earth enforcement, demanding the Council restore order and defend humanity's investment. In several Earth cities, groups of Martian-born residents have gathered outside government buildings carrying red cloth and pressure masks. In Geneva, police separated an anti-war crowd from a larger group accusing Mars of treason. In Lagos, dock workers refused to load military-linked cargo bound for the Mars corridor. In Vancouver, families of Earth Navy personnel held a vigil for the dead from the Calder and demanded that Mars surrender the Phobos attackers. In Buenos Aires, students projected the words, "No war through air," across the side of an orbital trade office. Earth is not united, Mars is more united, but not perfectly. There are Martians frightened by the Assembly's decisions. There are Earth-born residents on Mars who feel trapped. There are settlement business owners who fear sanctions will destroy them. There are engineers asking whether national pride can replace imported parts. There are parents asking whether independence will matter if the domes fail. War simplifies on the outside, inside it complicates everything. We have a listener message from Aries City that captures that tension. A man named Oren writes, I voted for independence. I still believe in it, but my son has asthma. His medication uses compounds imported from Earth. The clinic says there is enough for now. Everyone says enough for now. I'm tired of now. I want freedom measured in years, not in how many weeks of medicine are left. That is the hardest question Mars faces. Can independence survive the inventory list? And if Earth knows that, will Earth use it? Earth says no. Mars believes yes. Trust is now in shorter supply than oxygen. The military situation continues to shift. After the Hellas strike, Mars launched what it calls defensive suppression operations against Earth-targeting assets. Earth calls them retaliatory attacks. Martian drones struck 2 Earth sensor platforms positioned above the Mars transfer plane. One platform was disabled, another was damaged, but remains operational. Earth responded by expanding its enforcement perimeter. Mars has begun dispersing defense assets into lower orbits, using civilian traffic shadows and industrial platforms to complicate targeting. Earth accuses Mars of hiding weapons near civilian infrastructure. Mars accuses Earth of defining all Martian infrastructure as potential military targets, so it can strike whatever it wants. Again, both sides may be right enough to make the war worse. The Deimos traffic net has become unreliable. Several ships report being ordered to shut down active transponders and follow narrow laser-guided routes. Earth warns that ships operating without standard transponders may be treated as suspicious. Mars says standard transponders are vulnerable to Earth tracking and electronic attack. Civilian pilots are furious. One pilot wrote, Earth says keep your transponder on, or we might target you. Mars says turn it off, or Earth might target you. This is not navigation, this is a death quiz. That line has become common in pilot channels. A death quiz. There are now ships holding position for lack of safe instructions. Some carry cargo. Some carry people. One carries a shipment of neonatal incubator parts bound for Aries City. Another carries water purification membranes for a small settlement near Elysium. Every delayed ship becomes a story. Every story becomes pressure. Every pressure becomes leverage. The Luna Mediation Forum has tried again to bring both sides to talks. This time it proposed neutral terminology, not Martian provisional government, not Martian Provisional Assembly under Charter Authority. The proposed label is the Martian Delegation. Earth has agreed to preliminary contact under that label. Mars has agreed as well. That may sound small, it is not. The nameplate problem that blocked the first talks may be solved temporarily, but talks are not peace. They are what happens when war becomes expensive enough to share a room with language. The first agenda items are expected to include humanitarian corridors, prisoner and detainee status, relay deconfliction, Phobos access, and a temporary halt to strikes near agricultural, medical, and life support infrastructure. Mars wants recognition on the agenda. Earth says recognition cannot be discussed while Mars holds seized infrastructure. Mars says it cannot give up the infrastructure before recognition because the infrastructure is what keeps Earth from forcing surrender, so the central knot remains. But for the first time since Phobos, they may be speaking. That matters. We are now moving into the 5th day since the declaration. The war has acquired routines. That may be the saddest sign of all. Morning casualty summaries, midday legal briefings, evening threat assessments, nightly relay disruptions, lists of delayed ships, lists of damaged platforms, lists of statements condemning the other side's lists. People are learning when to expect bad news. That is how history becomes normal while it is still happening. Earth's public support for the enforcement action is slipping in some regions after the Hellas images. In other regions, support has hardened. Earth citizens are divided between those who see Mars as a people demanding self-rule and those who see Mars as a strategic territory being stolen by an unelected emergency faction. Martian public support for independence remains high, but support for continued military escalation is more complicated. Polls are difficult under war conditions, but settlement level data suggests most Martians support sovereignty while also fearing supply collapse. That combination is politically powerful and dangerous. A population can be willing to suffer and still terrified of suffering. Leaders can mistake endurance for permission. That is true on both worlds. We have received a statement from the Interplanetary Red Crescent and Red Cross Coalition. They are requesting immediate protected corridors for medical transfers, civilian evacuation, and critical life support shipments. The statement reads, "Whatever the legal status of Mars, whatever the claims of sovereignty or treaty authority, civilians cannot be made to breathe through political conditions. Civilians cannot be made to breathe through political conditions." That is another phrase that should not need saying, but here we are. Earth says it supports humanitarian corridors. Mars says it supports humanitarian corridors. They disagree over who inspects them. The sick child aboard the delayed Hellas Ganymede medical transport has become the symbol of that dispute. Her name has now been released by the family. Lena Rourke, 6 years old, born in Hellas Basin, severe cardiac defect requiring surgery in Ganymede's low-gravity pediatric facility. Her transport was delayed by routing restrictions after the Phobos incident, and then again by relay disruptions after the Hellas strike. Both sides say they want her ship cleared. Both sides blame the other for the delay. Her mother released a short message. "I do not care who recognizes what government today. I care that my daughter's heart does not understand diplomacy." After that message spread, both Earth and Mars cleared the medical transport within 40 minutes. 40 minutes. That tells us something. It tells us they can move when shame becomes public enough. Lena Rourke is now en route under protected medical clearance. One child moved through the war because enough people saw her. How many others remain unseen? We are now hearing reports of a major Martian operation near Deimos. Details are fragmentary, but it appears Mars has used a cluster of industrial maintenance craft, debris sweepers, and converted mining drones to push Earth surveillance assets out of a contested orbital band. Earth says several of its unmanned platforms were destroyed. Mars says they were disabled after refusing to leave Martian-controlled traffic space. No human casualties reported, but the tactical significance is large. Mars is showing it can use local industrial systems in coordinated ways Earth did not anticipate. This is not a fleet battle. It is an infrastructure swarm. Small machines, tugs, cutters, repair drones, cargo frames, objects that look harmless until they move together. A military analyst from Luna described it this way: "Earth brought a navy. Mars brought the dockyard." That line is now circulating everywhere. Earth brought a navy. Mars brought the dockyard. It is funny until you remember that dockyards are full of things designed to cut metal, move mass, drain fuel, weld hulls, and shove ships into alignment. Mars does not need to match Earth ship for ship. Mars needs to make Mars' orbit unbearable. The Earth Council has accused Mars of unlawful irregular warfare. Mars has responded that using Martian tools to defend Martian orbit is not irregular to Martians. There's something almost philosophical in that. A weapon is often just a tool seen from the wrong side. We are now past the halfway point of this war's first week. The casualty numbers remain contested, but the combined confirmed dead and missing across both sides now exceeds 300. That includes service personnel, dock workers, industrial crew, defense operators, and civilians from Hellas. 300 is small compared to ancient Earth wars. It is enormous in space. Every life off-world is expensive to protect. Every death travels through tightly connected communities. On Mars, a dead pressure technician may have repaired half a settlement's airlines. On an Earth ship, a dead navigation officer may have trained everyone on the bridge. These are not anonymous armies yet. They are still small enough for names to move faster than statistics. That may change if the war continues. That is one more reason it must not. The Martian Assembly has released a list of demands for ceasefire: immediate Earth withdrawal from the Phobos enforcement perimeter, recognition of Martian control over life support infrastructure, suspension of sanctions affecting civilian supply chains, neutral mediation on final political status, protection for Earth nationals on Mars and Martian nationals on Earth. Earth has released its own conditions: Martian stand down from seized relay systems, restoration of shared access to Phobos dockyard, release of Earth corporate personnel detained during nationalization actions, compensation for damaged Earth vessels, commitment to final status talks under existing treaty framework. There is overlap, not enough, but some. Both sides want civilian protections. Both sides want detainee safeguards. Both sides say they support humanitarian corridors. Both sides want the shooting to stop, though each wants the other to move first. Ceasefires often begin not with agreement, but exhaustion arranged into paragraphs. We may be approaching that point, or we may be approaching the next escalation. The next escalation may already be forming near Deimos. Earth appears to be repositioning several vessels after the Martian drone operation. Mars has declared a broader defense zone. Luna is urging both sides to freeze current positions. If they do not, Deimos may become the next Phobos. And if that happens, the war may become much harder to stop. We are now receiving a late-breaking advisory. Earth Command reports that one of its logistics vessels, the UES Mariner's Belle, has suffered a drive failure after evasive maneuvering near contested Deimos space. Mars says the vessel entered a restricted traffic band. Earth says it was avoiding Martian drones. The Mariner's Belle is crewed, 38 personnel aboard. Not a combat ship, a logistics support vessel. It is drifting in a decaying transfer path that may carry it through a debris zone if not corrected. Both Earth and Mars have rescue craft close enough to assist, but neither side trusts the other's approach. A rescue operation is becoming a standoff. This is how war traps the innocent, not always by shooting them, sometimes by making rescue politically complicated. We will continue to monitor the Mariner's Belle. The Luna Mediation Forum is reportedly urging both sides to allow joint rescue. A joint rescue could build trust or create another incident. We are waiting for confirmation. After several hours of uncertainty, we have word that Mars has offered a rescue corridor for the Mariner's Belle. Earth has accepted with conditions. The conditions are not fully public, but both sides have agreed to maintain weapons lock silence while rescue craft approach. Weapons lock silence means targeting systems will not actively lock onto the rescue corridor craft. It does not mean weapons are powered down. It does not mean trust. It means both sides are willing not to blink for a few minutes. The Martian rescue tug Red Lark is approaching the Mariner's Belle now. An Earth escort is holding outside the corridor. If successful, this will be the first direct cooperative action between Earth and Mars since the war began. A rescue tug from Mars, saving an Earth logistics crew in contested space. That image may matter, or it may be forgotten by the next explosion. The rescue has succeeded. The Red Lark stabilized the Mariner's Belle long enough for its crew to restore partial drive control. Earth Command has publicly thanked the Martian rescue crew, using the phrase Martian personnel rather than rebel operators. That language is being noticed. Mars has acknowledged the thanks. No political commentary yet. For a brief moment, the war paused so people could keep other people alive. That should not feel extraordinary. It does. The rescue may have created a small opening. The Luna Mediation Forum has announced that both delegations have agreed to emergency technical talks on humanitarian corridors, relay safety, and debris mitigation. Not final status, not recognition, not withdrawal. Technical talks. War is sometimes slowed by technicians before leaders admit they need peace. Engineers can sit together and say, if this valve fails, everyone dies. Pilots can say, if this lane stays closed, children miss surgery. Dockmasters can say, if debris crosses this orbit, your ship and my station both lose. Sometimes survival finds the room politics cannot enter. As we close this segment, here is where the war stands. Earth and Mars have fought near Phobos. The relay war is ongoing. Earth has imposed controlled interdiction that Mars calls blockade. Mars has conducted drone and industrial craft operations near Deimos. Earth struck a target near Hellas Basin, causing civilian casualties, according to Mars. Humanitarian corridors remain disputed, but one medical transport has been cleared. The Mariner's Bell rescue has created the first cooperative action of the war. Casualties have crossed 300 confirmed dead or missing. Both sides are still armed. Both sides are still angry. Both sides are discovering that victory in space is not the same as survival. The next phase may determine whether this war widens beyond control or begins to narrow toward negotiation. This is Jon Vale, Interplanetary Public Relay, Earth-Luna Band. No one wins a war fought through life support. Stay with us. You're listening to Interplanetary Public Relay, Earth-Luna Band. I'm Jon Vale. We are now entering the final and most dangerous phase of the Martian Independence War. I say final carefully. No one knows that while history is happening, no one inside a crisis can point to a moment and say, this is where it ends. People inside a crisis only know when something has become too expensive to continue, too dangerous to control, or too terrible to justify. We may be approaching that point now. The rescue of the UES Mariner's Bell by the Martian tug Red Lark has changed the tone of the war, not ended it, not softened it, not forgiven. Phobos, Hellas, Deimos, sanctions, drone strikes, relay attacks, dead crews, shattered greenhouses, or families waiting for messages that arrive hours late. But it changed something. For the first time since Mars declared independence, Earth and Mars coordinated an operation not to seize, block, disable, punish, or defend. They coordinated to keep people alive, and once that happens, even once the argument that the other side is nothing but enemy becomes harder to maintain. Harder, not impossible. Governments are very skilled at maintaining difficult arguments, but harder. In the hours since the Mariner's Bell rescue, the Luna Mediation Forum has moved from technical talks to emergency armistice drafting. Earth still refuses to recognize full Martian independence. Mars still refuses to return to charter authority. Earth still demands shared access to Phobos Dockyard and the Olympus Relay Crown. Mars still demands control over life support infrastructure, settlement law, and orbital traffic in the Martian system. Those positions have not changed. What has changed is the pressure around them. Casualties have risen, ships are stranded, agricultural imports are delayed, medical transfers are still vulnerable. Orbital debris is accumulating around Mars, and both sides have now seen how close a disabled logistics ship came to becoming another disaster neither government wanted to own. War between Earth and Mars was never going to be about conquest in the old sense. Earth cannot occupy every dome on Mars without breaking the systems it claims to protect. Mars cannot strike Earth in any meaningful way without inviting destruction it cannot survive. Both worlds can hurt each other. Neither can safely hold the other by the throat. That is the brutal balance now emerging. A war neither side can win without damaging the thing it says it is trying to save. We are now receiving the first confirmed reports of a major engagement near Deimos. This may become known as the Deimos Offensive, though Mars is already using the phrase Deimos Defense Action, and Earth is calling it an unprovoked swarm attack. The facts, as best we can assemble them, are these. After the Mariner's Bell rescue, Earth repositioned 3 escort vessels and 1 electronic warfare platform to cover the Deimos traffic band. Earth says this was done to protect civilian routes and prevent further Martian drone interference. Mars says the movement was preparation for a second enforcement push, this time aimed at Deimos traffic net. Deimos traffic net is smaller than Phobos Dockyard, but strategically important. It handles routing for ships entering high Mars orbit and serves as a backup node when Olympus Relay Crown is congested or attacked. Mars warned Earth vessels not to cross the inner Deimos boundary. Earth did not recognize the boundary. Again, the same sentence appears before the shooting. A line drawn, a line rejected. This time, Mars did not send a single tug. It sent many. industrial maintenance drones, debris sweepers, mining cutters, docking frames, automated cargo shepherds, fuel line inspection crawlers, small autonomous systems that looked on Earth tactical displays like clutter. Then the clutter formed lanes, then the lanes became walls, then the walls accelerated. Earth Command says the swarm attempted to blind sensors, foul maneuvering paths, and force escort vessels away from Deimos. Mars says the swarm was non-lethal and intended to push armed ships out of civilian traffic space. Earth says several drones carried cutting charges. Mars says those charges were industrial tools, not weapons. Again, both may be true. An industrial cutter does not become less dangerous because someone renamed it. In the first 12 minutes of the engagement, Earth lost 2 unmanned sensor platforms and 1 escort vessel suffered thruster damage. Mars lost dozens of drones and at least 3 crewed control craft were disabled. Then the Earth Electronic Warfare Platform UES Halcyon Spear fired a directed pulse to clear the swarm. Mars says the pulse disrupted Deimos civilian traffic systems, causing emergency failures across several docked ships. Earth says the pulse was narrowly targeted at hostile drone coordination. What is confirmed is this: for 11 minutes, Deimos traffic net went dark. No navigation, no traffic lights, no automated collision avoidance, no docking guidance, no civilian corridor separation. 11 minutes, that may not sound long. In orbit, 11 minutes is enough time for a wrong vector to become a grave. When the network returned, 4 civilian vessels had triggered emergency collision burns. 1 passenger transfer craft clipped a maintenance pylon and lost pressure in an external luggage module. 2 crew members were injured. No deaths confirmed there. But a Martian control craft, the Sandpiper 3, did not recover. It collided with a disabled drone cluster and broke apart. 5 crew members are missing. Mars calls them defenders of Deimos. Earth calls them operators of an unlawful attack swarm. Their families call them by names that have not yet been released publicly. The Deimos offensive did not produce a decisive military result. Earth vessels withdrew slightly but remained near the outer band. Mars retained Deimos traffic net, but lost significant drone capacity. Both sides claimed success. Both sides paid for it. The important consequence is not the tactical map. It is the debris. Deimos orbit is now dirty. Phobos orbit is already dirty from the first battle. Several relay zones are degraded. Fragments of drone bodies, sensor panels, thermal shielding, broken antennae, torn tug assemblies, spent countermeasures, and shattered pylon material are now moving through Mars' orbital space. Most of it is being tracked, but some of it is not. The phrase debris environment has entered the official statements. That is a phrase no off-world settlement likes to hear. A bullet is dangerous while someone fires it. Debris remains dangerous after everyone forgets who shot first. We are now more than a week into the crisis that began with a declaration, and the war is producing its own weather. Not clouds, not rain, metal, fast, silent, patient metal. A debris shard does not care whether it came from Earth or Mars. It does not care who recognized which government. It does not care whether the ship it hits is military, civilian, neutral, medical, or full of children pressing their faces to a viewport to see Mars for the first time. Debris is the most honest thing war creates in orbit. It belongs to everyone. It threatens everyone. And now, for the first time, both Earth and Mars agree on one point. The debris field is becoming a shared emergency. The Mars Orbital Safety Authority, newly renamed by the Martian Assembly, says debris from Phobos and Deimos could intersect with several civilian traffic lanes within 48 hours. Earth's Orbital Hazard Office says the Martian estimate is exaggerated, but admits the risk is serious. Independent traffic monitors say both governments are understating uncertainty. That may be the most honest assessment. No one knows where every fragment is. No one knows what happens if both sides keep fighting through a cloud of broken machines. And then came the Ares warning. Ares City is the largest settlement on Mars. 7 million people across the central dome complex, underground extensions, industrial rings, university sectors, old lava tube districts, hospital corridors, transit hubs, agricultural annexes, and the newer pressure valleys spreading beneath dust-covered shielding. It is not the capital only because someone wrote it into a document. It is the capital because Mars breathes through it. The old saying is that all roads on Mars lead to Ares. The engineers say something more practical. All emergency routing eventually does. Several hours ago, Mars issued a warning that a cluster of debris from the Deimos engagement had entered a projected path that could intersect with Ares City's upper shield envelope. Not the main dome glass, Ares does not rely on one simple dome anymore, not like the old settlement images show. It is layered shielding, sacrificial plates, pressure compartments, buried corridors, deflection mesh, regolith cover, and outer maintenance shells. But debris moving fast enough does not need to destroy a city to create disaster. It only needs to puncture the wrong layer, damage a heat line, cripple an external power trunk, trigger a pressure cascade, shatter an observation segment, force evacuation of an outer ring. Ares City has gone into debris shelter protocol. Children are being moved away from upper education decks. Hospitals are shifting critical patients deeper underground. Surface workers have been recalled. Transit through the North Shield corridor is suspended. Emergency doors are cycling section by section. The Assembly is calling for immediate cessation of all military maneuvers within the projected debris hazard zone. Earth has agreed to a temporary fire pause near Ares approach vectors, not a ceasefire, a fire pause. Another small phrase trying to carry a large hope. The fire pause is scheduled to last 6 hours. During that window, both sides will share debris tracking data through Luna mediation channels, and debris sweepers from Mars will attempt to alter the path of the most dangerous fragments. Earth has offered additional tracking support. Mars has accepted the data, but not Earth craft inside the inner shield zone. The lack of trust remains, but the guns near Ares are quiet, for now. A listener from Ares City sent this message from a shelter corridor. My son asked if Earth is shooting at us. I told him no, not right now. He asked if Mars is shooting back. I told him no, not right now. He asked why we are hiding then. I told him because things people break do not stop moving just because people stop fighting. He is 8. He understood that better than I wanted him to. Things people break do not stop moving just because people stop fighting. That may be the lesson of the debris crisis, and maybe of the whole war. The Ares debris operation is underway. Martian sweepers are attempting to intercept or redirect several high-risk fragments. These are not glamorous machines. They are ugly, practical, overworked orbital maintenance craft designed to catch, push, net, vaporize, or redirect objects before they hit something expensive. Tonight they are protecting a city. Earth is feeding additional tracking solutions through Luna. For the first time since the war began, Earth data and Martian machines are working on the same problem in real time. Not because the political problem is solved, because physics is less patient than diplomacy. One of the fragments has been successfully deflected. Another was missed. A third broke apart during attempted interception and created smaller fragments, which are now being tracked separately. This is the nightmare of debris mitigation. Sometimes you do not remove danger. You multiply it into pieces you can only hope are smaller than the walls they may strike. Ares remains under shelter protocol. No impact yet. That is the phrase being repeated every few minutes. No impact yet. People are listening to it the way people once listened. For storm warnings, flood crests, radiation levels, missile alerts. No impact yet. Still breathing. Still waiting. The Martian Assembly has released images from inside Ares shelter corridors. Families sitting against red-painted walls, children wearing pressure masks around their necks, medical staff moving portable oxygen carts, teachers reading to students by emergency light, old people wrapped in thermal blankets. A sign above one corridor reads, "We are below, we are safe, we are Mars." Earth networks are carrying some of the images now. Not all, but enough. Enough for people on Earth to see that Mars is not an abstraction. Not a mining contract, not a debt instrument, not a rebellious asset, a city, people under walls hoping the sky does not fall in pieces. Something is shifting in the public mood on Earth. Not everywhere, not among everyone, but visibly. The same commentators who spent the first days speaking of restoring order are now speaking of preventing catastrophe. The same officials who emphasized treaty infrastructure are now emphasizing civilian safety. The language of enforcement is still there, but the language of survival is growing around it. That matters. Wars do not always end because leaders become merciful. Sometimes they end because the public can no longer pretend the target is empty. The first minor debris impacts have occurred, not on the main Ares structure. 2 fragments struck outer regolith shielding above an unoccupied maintenance sector. No pressure loss, no injuries. A 3rd fragment impacted a detached solar service platform outside the city's north utility ring. Power systems rerouted successfully, no major breach, no casualties. Ares is still safe, for now. The largest fragment remains on approach to the outer shield envelope. Martian sweepers are attempting one more deflection. Earth tracking data suggests the fragment may miss the primary structure. If nudged by even a fraction of a degree, Mars says the maneuver is possible. The sweeper craft assigned to the intercept is the Mara Kestrel, crewed by 2 people, a pilot and a debris engineer. Martian channels have released their first names only, Tavi and Ren. Earth channels are now carrying their craft telemetry. Think about that. A week ago, Earth and Mars were arguing over debt schedules. Days ago, they were firing near Phobos. Yesterday, Earth called Martian industrial craft unlawful irregular assets. Tonight, millions on Earth are watching 2 Martians in an orbital sweeper try to save Ares City from debris created by a battle both worlds helped produce. History turns quickly when people can see who is inside the suit. The Mara Kestrel has made contact with the fragment. Telemetry unstable, it is pushing. The fragment is tumbling. Earth tracking shows partial change in vector. Mars says the push is insufficient. The Kestrel is increasing burn. This is dangerous. If the sweeper overcorrects or loses contact, it could be struck or pulled into a hazardous path. Ares remains under shelter. The Kestrel is still pushing. The fragment is shifting. Earth tracking now says the object will clear the primary shield envelope. Mars confirms projected miss. The largest fragment will miss Ares City. The shelter corridors are quiet according to local feeds. Not cheering yet. People are too tired to cheer quickly. The Mara Kestrel is damaged but stable. Tavi and Ren are alive. Ares City has avoided catastrophic impact. This may be the turning point, not because anyone won, because everyone saw what losing would look like. Within an hour of the Ares deflection, the Luna Mediation Forum issued a formal emergency proposal. It is being called the Lagrange Silence Window, a 12-hour halt to all offensive operations, immediate debris sharing cooperation, humanitarian corridor activation, no movement of Earth vessels closer to Phobos during the window, no Martian strikes against Earth vessels holding outside current positions, no relay attacks, no drone swarms, no sanctions changes, no infrastructure seizures beyond current control. In other words, everyone freezes, everyone breathes, everyone talks. Mars accepted within 20 minutes. Earth accepted after 47. 47 minutes is not long in diplomacy. It felt long tonight. The Lagrange silence window is now in effect. Across Mars' orbit, weapons are not powered down, but they are quiet. Earth vessels are holding. Martian platforms are holding. Debris tracking is shared. Humanitarian traffic is moving under protected lanes. Lena Rourke, the 6-year-old patient whose transport became a symbol of the corridor dispute, has arrived safely at Ganymede and is undergoing surgery. That update came through during the silence window. Her mother sent one sentence: "Tell them she is alive because someone finally stopped arguing long enough to let her pass." That sentence is being broadcast on both Earth and Mars. Some sentences do what treaties cannot. The first direct armistice talks have begun through a neutral Lagrange relay. The delegates are not in the same room physically. No one trusted travel enough for that. They are connected through delayed, secure relay with Luna mediators holding the floor. The nameplate problem has been temporarily bypassed. The Martian side is labeled Mars Delegation. The Earth side is labeled Earth Delegation. No titles, no recognition embedded in the heading, just names of worlds. That may sound symbolic. It is. And symbols matter when the war began, partly because one world refused to call the other what it called itself. The opening agenda includes extension of the silence window, humanitarian corridors, debris mitigation, prisoner and detainee status, protection of Earth nationals on Mars and Martian nationals on Earth, temporary access rules for Phobos and Deimos, relay non-interference, life support infrastructure guarantees, final political status. The last item is listed but bracketed. Brackets mean disagreement. Brackets mean no one is ready to say the words yet, but the words are on the page, final political status. That alone is farther than either side was willing to go before Phobos, before Hellas, before Deimos, before Ares. War makes some words impossible. Then it makes them necessary. The silence window has been extended by 6 hours, then 12, then 24. That is how ceasefires sometimes begin. A temporary pause survives long enough to become the fact everyone is afraid to break. There have been violations, minor ones. A targeting radar activated too long near Phobos. A Martian drone crossed a disputed boundary before being recalled. An Earth escort vessel shifted position in a way Mars protested. None escalated. The mediators are calling them technical incidents. That phrase is useful. It gives angry people a way not to restart the war. Sometimes peace depends on giving violations boring names. The casualty numbers are still being reconciled. Confirmed dead and missing now exceed 600. That number may rise as damaged ships are searched and Hellas casualties are finalized. 600 is not large enough for leaders to call the war unwinnable. It is large enough for families to know it already was. Mars has released the names from Hellas. Earth has released the names from the Calder and later engagements. Phobos Dockyard has released the names of civilians killed in the first incident. Deimos has released the Sandpiper 3 crew names. The lists are being read across local relays. Not all at once, no music, no speeches, just names. The Interplanetary Red Crescent and Red Cross Coalition has asked both sides not to use casualty lists in propaganda. Both sides agreed. Both sides violated the spirit within hours. That is another thing. Peace must survive. The armistice draft now has a name, the Lagrange Armistice. Not a peace treaty, not final recognition, not surrender, an armistice. The draft terms, as we understand them, include the following. Earth will suspend all enforcement operations in the Martian system. Mars will suspend all offensive operations against Earth vessels holding outside agreed boundaries. Earth vessels will withdraw from the immediate Phobos enforcement perimeter to a neutral monitoring distance. Mars will allow limited neutral inspection of Phobos dockyard damage, not under Earth authority, but under Luna Forum supervision. The Olympus Relay Crown will remain under Martian operational control, but a neutral civilian communications channel will be guaranteed for Earth-Mars, family, medical, and commercial messages. Life support infrastructure on Mars will remain under Martian public authority during final status negotiations. Earth-chartered corporate personnel detained during nationalization actions will be reviewed under neutral legal process. Sanctions affecting medical, agricultural, and life support supplies will be suspended. Mars will guarantee safety and legal review for Earth nationals on Martian territory. Earth will guarantee safety and legal review for Martian nationals on Earth and Luna. Humanitarian corridors will remain open. Both sides will cooperate on debris removal. Final political status negotiations will begin within 30 days. And here is the central line. Earth will recognize the Martian Provisional Assembly as the de facto civil authority of Mars for the duration of armistice negotiations. De facto, not sovereign, not independent, not lawful government, but civil authority. Mars wanted recognition. Earth wanted to avoid it. De facto is the bridge, a phrase ugly enough for both sides to hate and useful enough for both to sign. Mars has not gotten full independence in Earth's words. Earth has admitted it must deal with Mars as the authority controlling Mars. That is the reality the war created. The Martian Assembly is debating the armistice now. The Earth Council is doing the same. Hardliners on Earth are calling it surrender to rebellion. Hardliners on Mars are calling it surrender to Earth language. That may mean the mediators found the right level of dissatisfaction. Good agreements often disappoint the people who wanted victory more than survival. Speaker Amara Kale addressed the Martian Assembly before the vote. She said, "We did not declare independence to trade one set of chains for a prettier clause, but neither did we declare independence to bury our children under broken orbit. Mars must live long enough to be free. Today, survival is not retreat, it is strategy." On Earth, the council chair made his own argument. He said, "We are recognition of de facto authority is not endorsement of unlawful separation. It is a practical measure to preserve life, stabilize trade, protect citizens, and prevent further destruction while final status is negotiated." No one sounds happy. That may be the sound of the war ending. The Martian Assembly has voted to accept the Lagrange armistice. The vote was not unanimous, but it passed. The Earth Council vote took longer. There were procedural objections, emergency caucuses, angry speeches, and one attempt to attach a clause requiring Mars to lower its New Horizon banner from official buildings. That clause failed. The Earth Council has accepted the Lagrange armistice. The war is not officially over until both sides transmit final authorization to the Luna Mediation Forum. Those transmissions are now being prepared. We are standing by. The authorizations have been transmitted. The Lagrange armistice is now in effect. Earth enforcement operations are suspended. Martian offensive operations are suspended. The Phobos perimeter withdrawal begins within the next operational window. Humanitarian corridors are open. Debris operations continue under shared tracking. The Olympus Relay Crown remains under Martian control with neutral civilian channel guarantees. Life support infrastructure remains under Martian public authority during negotiations. Final status talks begin in 30 days. Mars has not been fully recognized as independent by Earth, but Earth has agreed in writing to negotiate with the authority that controls Mars. Mars has not forced Earth to say the word sovereignty, but it has forced Earth to ask permission where Earth once issued orders. That is not everything. It is not nothing. On Mars, people are gathering in Ares City, shelter corridors, public squares, station halls, agricultural domes, mining tunnels, and pressure galleries. The Assembly has asked citizens not to hold large surface gatherings due to debris risk. They are gathering anyway, indoors, under glass, below rock, in the places Mars actually lives. Some are celebrating, some are mourning, some are angry. The armistice did not go far enough. Some are relieved it went anywhere at all. In Hellas Basin, the mourning period continues. In Phobos Dockyard, repair crews are already working. In Deimos, traffic controllers are trying to rebuild trust one clearance at a time. On Earth, protests continue. Some demand formal recognition of Mars. Some demand the Council reject the armistice and restore control. Some simply hold signs with the names of the dead. On Luna, dock crews rang station bells when the armistice was confirmed. Not for victory, for quiet. It is difficult to explain what quiet means after days of orbital war. Quiet is not peace. Quiet is the first tool peace uses. We are now in the first hours after the armistice. The shooting has stopped. The arguments have not. That is expected. There will be investigations into Phobos, into Hellas, into Deimos, into the relay attacks, into sanctions, into corporate conduct before the declaration, into Martian planning before the declaration, into Earth's decision to send the task group, into whether war could have been avoided. Every side will produce documents proving it was right. Every family of the dead will have to decide whether those documents matter. History will ask who started the war. Mars will say Earth did when it refused to recognize reality. Earth will say Mars did when it seized treaty infrastructure. Pilots will say it started when ships entered the corridor. Dock workers will say it started when Earth treated Phobos like property instead of a workplace. Corporate lawyers will say it started with illegal nationalization. Martian school children may say it started before they were born, when Earth built systems that never imagined them as adults. Maybe they are all wrong. Maybe they are all partly right. Wars rarely begin at the first shot. The first shot is often just the moment everyone stops pretending the war has not already started somewhere else. For Mars, maybe the war began in a contract. For Earth, maybe it began in a declaration. For the dead on the Harrow, it began in a traffic lane. For the dead in Hellas, it began in the sky. For Ares City, it nearly arrived as debris. For the historians, it will begin wherever their argument needs it to begin, but for those of us listening as it happened, it began with a sentence: Mars belongs to those who breathe its dust. And it changed everything. The first Earth vessels have begun withdrawal from the Phobos enforcement perimeter. Martian defense platforms remain active but have reduced targeting posture. Neutral observers are moving toward Phobos. The first protected cargo convoy under armistice rules is preparing to depart Luna for Mars with medical compounds, agricultural inputs, pressure sealant, microfilters, and pediatric surgical supplies. On Mars, the first outgoing shipment under the armistice is not minerals, not fuel, not metal. It is casualty remains. Earth service members recovered from the Calder and later engagements are being returned through neutral transfer. Mars requested permission to include a written note from the Phobos dockyard workers who recovered some of the bodies. Earth accepted. The note reads, "They died far from home. We handled them as we would want ours handled." That may be the most decent sentence of the war. We should hold on to it. There's a final listener message I want to read. It comes from a woman named Lisa, a school administrator in Ares City. She writes, "Today we told the children the shooting stopped. One of them asked if that means Mars is free. Another asked if Earth is still mad. Another asked if the debris can still fall. I told them yes, maybe, and yes. Then I told them they could take off their pressure masks for lunch. They cheered at that. Not for independence, not for victory, for lunch without masks. Adults make history complicated. Children remind us what it is for. That is what all of this is for. Lunch without masks. Messages that arrive. Ships that dock. Air that flows because engineers are not waiting to see if a relay strike begins. Children who do not have to know which clause of an armistice allowed their medicine through. Freedom, if it becomes real, will have speeches. It will have flags. It will have anniversaries. It will have statues of people who argued over wording in rooms far from the first dead. But before any of that, freedom has to keep the lights on. Freedom has to keep the pumps running. Freedom has to keep the corridors warm. Freedom has to keep ships moving and hospitals stocked and farms sealed and schools open. Mars has won the right to attempt that under its own authority. Provisional, disputed, wounded, but real enough that Earth had to sign. The final political status of Mars remains unresolved. Earth calls the armistice temporary. Mars calls it the first recognition. The lawyers will fight over that. The negotiators will spend months, maybe years, turning pain into clauses. But tonight, the enforcement fleet is withdrawing. The relays are quiet. The humanitarian lanes are open. The debris sweepers are moving under shared tracking. And across Mars, people are learning how to celebrate without forgetting to mourn. The war ended not because either world ran out of anger, but because both worlds remembered they still had to breathe. Mars is independent tonight, provisional, wounded, and watching the sky. This is Jon Vale, Interplanetary Public Relay Earth-Luna Band. We will continue to monitor the Lagrange armistice, the humanitarian corridors, and the opening of final status negotiations. To the crews still clearing debris, steady hands. To the families waiting for names, we are with you. To the people of Earth, Luna, Mars, and every station between, the shooting has stopped. For now, that is enough to begin. Good night.